show.
It's the type of place where you can wear your hat, just relax and just hear a dope track. The vibe is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat, just relax.
All right, we up and running. Check it out.
Can you relax? Just hear a dope track. The vibe is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work.
Yes, there's been a lot of news, and like always, Donald Trump seems to be the newsman, and it's really, really ridiculous at this point because every time you hear something from Trump, what you get is just wildness. Every time he does something, it's flip flop all the way. I mean, at this point, you really got to wonder if the U.S. is safe, number one, but you have to question its ability to really mobilize its military, to take care of its own people, to do anything right. I mean, it's really, it would be embarrassing if it wasn't already embarrassing, but it is completely and utterly distasteful, rotten to the core. I mean, not to the core because, of course, it's a country that's still, quote unquote, governed by the people. Right now, there's folks saying that it's not, and I lean on that side too. I agree. Is it an oligarchy? I mean, is what's going on in the U.S. an oligarchy? It's hard to say that it's not because Trump seems to be circumventing the people, right, at every turn, or attempting to. Of course, we have the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is essentially how we got in this mess in the first place. I mean, they gave Trump a pass on criminal behavior that they were very much aware of. It's not even a secret, and this puts the U.S. in jeopardy in every way. It puts the people in jeopardy. It puts the nation in jeopardy. If it's a nation governed by the people, that is in jeopardy. I feel sorry for people that have to go through the stress of this inside of the U.S. And, what can you say about it? I mean, I myself am an American living outside of the U.S., and therefore I get to see a lot of things from the outside, you could say. And it's, it's got people up in arms outside. Everywhere you see protests outside of the U.S., inside of the U.S., apparently there's protests all over the place. And kudos to the people that have been doing these protests. I mean, it's in your hands. It is literally in the people's hands. My opinion is, if you don't hit the streets, and I said this before, I said this a month ago, folks got to hit the streets. If you want this stopped, this is in the people's hands. I applaud people that are hitting the streets, people that are boycotting. I applaud you also. People that are demonstrating, I applaud you also. It seems like the only thing that's really been effective so far are the boycotts. The boycotts on Tesla, to send a message just for the start of it. And anytime that you have the appointee, what is it? What's her name again? Good grief, I can't. Bondi, right? Bondi, Pam Bondi. Anytime you got her out there, the Justice Department issuing threats to people, and talking about Tesla, how unfair it is to Tesla, man, listen. These people did not care about doing anything unfair to any American citizen. Right now, they are operating as if they are an authoritarian state. I mean, they are banning people for freedom of speech, of all things. Just that is the First Amendment. That is your First Amendment right. And they're banning people for using the First Amendment rights. I mean, it is ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's tragic. It's horrible. It is an attack on the people, essentially. That's how I look at it. If you attack the Constitution, you're attacking the people. The Constitution is there to guarantee the people's rights. It is what the nation is founded on. You can have no U.S. without the Constitution, and the Constitution outlines how Americans govern, how they write laws. And this administration has totally gone and circumvented the Congress and the people. So, having said that, there's been hacks, and everybody knows about the hacks. Now, Trump himself, lately, I'm going to play that, but lately he has actually said that he himself, he doesn't give a damn. Trump he doesn't even see the leaks as classified. He doesn't see anything about that as classified. And because Trump came out and said that, the Atlantic has released the actual text. And here we are. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. And they weren't even going to release them. It's terrible. They weren't even going to release it, and they only released it because Trump tried to clap back. Trump essentially is saying he's lying. He's saying it's not classified. Since when do you release details on an impending attack? War plans. Since when is that not classified? But there's breaches here, and it's even worse. There are breaches. Let me keep an eye on the chat since the chat's not up on the screen. I'm using OBS now. It's helping me out actually avoid a few things with YouTube, because YouTube doesn't like how I'm making my videos. They want me to show how I'm making my videos. I don't even know what they want me to show. You know, I got two kinds of videos: lives and the ones done with editing. Now, I'm not editing the live videos, so that should be obvious. But oh my God. But they want me to show nonetheless how I'm doing this thing. And so when I get some time, I will do some videos for them. But in the meantime, we have these leaks, which are more important, by the way. Since I am actually giving some critical commentary from outside the U.S. as an American citizen, you would think YouTube, of all people, would understand that. But I got to tell you, I think YouTube is cracking down on media. I really do. So people, just like maybe inside, you see Trump cracking down on media. By the way, Trump, I don't know if it's an executive order on that, but he has plans to defund public media. That is, PBS and others. You know, any institution, media outlet that gets public funding, right, to make sure that there's fair coverage of all types of things, you know. Hey, he's cracking down on that First Amendment. He doesn't want the people talking. And, so having said that, let me go in and read a little bit of this. Now, we got this new article. Is breaking news. Here are the attack plans that Trump advisors share on Signal, that they shared on Signal. The administration has downplayed the importance of the text messages inadvertently sent to the Atlantic editor-in-chief. And this is by Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris. And then we're going to go into the hearings. If I didn't put that up in the stream title, we're going to watch some of the hearings, because these officials that have all been called to testify, they are bizarre. They don't have nothing for the people. It appears as if they know they're busted, cold busted, but they don't give a damn. They've been cold busted the whole time, and yet they persist. So people, until you see the Supreme Court shut down this administration, And until you see Congress shut down Trump, shut him down, I'm talking about everybody in there, because this is all unconstitutional. You, my advice is hit the streets. Yes, hit Elon Musk. Make them feel the economic pain. This is your only option. And it's sad that it has to be that way. But until the government takes the people seriously, takes the Constitution seriously, which the taxpayers pay for, by the way, which citizens of the U.S. have shed blood over the years, over the centuries, until these things are restored. Hey, you guys are on your own, and you have money. Trump wants to take away your money. He wants to make you feel the pain. If you ask me, I said this a month ago. He's going to attack the American people's pockets first, because he doesn't want you to be able to fight back. And who knows what you're going to be fighting for. You might have to be fighting for your life soon. But he seems to have plans to weaken people, and we'll see how far this goes. But in any case, on Monday, shortly after we published the story about a massive Trump administration security breach, a reporter asked the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, why he had shared plans about the forthcoming attack on Yemen on Signal messaging app. He answered, nobody was texting war plans. Ha, ha, ha. And that's all I have to say about it. You see that? You see how that's all he got to say about it. In the story, he's not going to say nothing else. Wow. He's really, really scared. He is really scared, if you ask me. At a Senate hearing yesterday, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, people say she's a Putin puppet. And the Director of Central Intelligence Agency, John Radcliffe, were both asked about the Signal chat, to which Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was inadvertently invited. Inadvertently? Yeah, what does that mean? Because to me, I don't know if inadvertently means on purpose, but somebody definitely put his name in there and knew who he was. Invited by National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. There was no classification material that was shared in the Signal group. Okay. This is his quote. There was no classified material that was shared in the Signal group. So that's what Trump is saying too. None of it was classified. It's just impending war plans, things they had not put in effect yet. And they're saying that's not classified. Since when is that not classified? Radcliffe said much the same. My communications, to be clear, in the Signal messaging group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information. Lawful? Is that lawful? Is that lawful? Spying, espionage? Is that lawful? I mean, I don't know if it's lawful, but is that the only problem here? Is that the only thing that's got to be figured out? If it's lawful? Hey, it's dangerous to the United States and the people of the United States. It is dangerous. And Lord knows, if they got caught this one time, using that app, discussing stuff, you could be pretty sure many foreign governments have any type of information they've been using and discussing prior to this. And if they're dumb enough to keep using it now, oh my goodness. But in any case, we're going to follow up on that, because I'm going to play a clip of Malcolm Vance. He does the breakdown where he breaks down how they have access to this stuff. Russia, Putin, and others, China, they know how to access Signal already. Duh. How could these people not know? By the way, the United States government a week ago, before this leak even happened, they already said that Signal was a no-go. So what's going on? The military, the Pentagon said it to these people. What is going on? Is there no communication between the Pentagon and the appointees of Trump? The ones that head up the Central Intelligence Agency, the ones that head up the CIA, right? The ones that head up the Department of Defense, the ones that head up, all these agencies, they didn't know that? How could they not know? It's their own Pentagon that said so a week before they even were caught doing this. The statements presented us with the dilemma, right? The initial story about the Signal chat The Houthi PC small group, right? That's what the chat was called, as it was named by Waltz. We withheld specific information related to the weapons and to the timing of the attacks that we found in certain texts. Okay, that's what Atlantic did. They didn't want to do that in the beginning. They said, when we saw what was going on, when we first reported this, they didn't want to release all the information, obviously. But since the administration is saying none of it's classified, they they kind of got the green light to release all the stuff. Okay, as a general rule, we do not publish information about military operations if that information could possibly jeopardize the lives of U.S. personnel. That's why we chose to characterize the nature of the information being shared, not specific details about the attacks, right? So they withheld some of the information initially. The statements by Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and Trump, combined with the assertions made by numerous administration officials that we are lying, meaning Atlantic, right, about the content of the signal text, have led us to believe that people should see the text in order to reach their own conclusions. There is a clear public interest in disclosing the sort of information that Trump advisors included in non-secure communication channels, especially because senior administration figures are attempting to downplay the significance of the messages that were shared. This is on the Atlantic, y'all. Experts, by the way, they're out of DC too. I need to check in on them. I want to write some articles for them, by the way. Experts have repeatedly told us that the use of a signal chat for such sensitive discussions poses a threat to national security. Experts have already said that. The Pentagon already said it a week ago. Before this happened, as a case in point, Golden receives information on the attacks 2 hours before the scheduled start of the bombing of Houthi positions. If this information, particularly the exact times American aircraft were taking off for Yemen, had fallen into the wrong hands in that crucial 2-hour period, American pilots and other American personnel would have been exposed to even greater danger than they ordinarily would face. The Trump administration is arguing that the military information contained in these texts was not classified, as it typically would be, although the president has not explained how he reached this conclusion. Yes, so Trump, he hasn't explained how he reached his conclusion that it's not classified. It wasn't classified. Trump's never explained it. We probably know why, because he can't. When your own Pentagon says don't use signal, you shouldn't use it. Yesterday, we asked, above other things, we asked officials across the Trump administration if they objected to us publishing the full text in emails to the Central Intelligence Agency, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the National Security Council, the Department of Defense, and the White House. We wrote, in part, in light of the statements today from multiple administration officials, including before the Senate Intelligence Committee, which we're about to show, that the information in the signal chain about the Houthi strike is not classified. That's the Houthis out of Yemen. And that it does not contain war plans. This is what they keep doubling down on. The Atlantic is considering publishing the entirety of the signal chain. Here we go. We sent out a first request for comment and feedback to national security officials shortly after noon. The follow-up in the evening after most failed to answer. Okay. After most of them failed to answer, they did this follow-up. Late yesterday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emailed a response. As we have repeatedly stated, there was no classified information transmitted in the group chat. However, as the CIA director and national security advisor have both expressed today, that does not mean we encourage the release of the conversations. Duh, what does that mean? Which one is it? Left or right? Release or not to release? You are the ones with power. What do you want people to do with it? This was intended to be an internal and private deliberation amongst high-level senior staff, and sensitive information was discussed. Which one is it? Is it classified or not? Is it a danger to the military or not? they don't seem to want to tell people. So for those reasons, yes, we object to the release. You object, but objecting, what does that mean exactly? We have freedom of speech. We have the right to have journalists inform the public. What? This just makes no sense. This is them trying to mince words, you know. Yes, we object to the release. The Levitt statement did not address which elements of the text the White House considered sensitive, or how more than a week after the initial airstrikes their publication could have bearing on national security. Yeah, we know what it is. They're embarrassed. That's what this is about. That's why it's sensitive. But they weren't even caring about the military in releasing the information. That makes no sense. How is it not classified? That would be sensitive, right? They didn't think so when they released it. When they had the conversation on Signal, they didn't think it was that sensitive. Obviously, having been warned that foreign agencies have access to that chat app, the CIA spokesperson asked us to withhold the name of John Radcliffe, Chief of Staff. What is this? Asked? Okay. The American people can't ask them shit right now, by the way, which Radcliffe had shared in the signal chain because the CIA intelligence officers are traditionally not publicly identified. Radcliffe had testified earlier yesterday that the officer is not undercover and said it was completely appropriate. See, here we are. This is ridiculous. Sensitive or not sensitive to share their name in the signal conversations. If it was in the signal conversations, according to the Pentagon, that could get out anyway to foreign operatives, Russia and China, among others. We will continue to withhold the name of the officer, otherwise the messages are unrelated. This is terrible. They're going to withhold it to the American public, but who else has it? By the way, the envoy to Russia, to the Russia-Ukraine meeting, right? They were in Russia at the time. That means they had the phone. They had the signal. They were chatting. They were reading the messages while in Russia and likely inside of a Russian security building, that has sensitive stuff themselves. I mean, it's ridiculous. As we wrote on Monday, much of the conversations in the Houthi PC small group concerning the timing and rationale of the attacks on the Houthis and contained remarks by Trump administration's officials about the alleged shortcomings of American European allies. Right, this is where it gets funny. They were in the chat talking about Hillary Clinton, probably Obama. Hillary Clinton lives in these people's brains. Obama lives in these people's brains. Doing what's right to protect your own military doesn't live in their brains. The safety of the American people doesn't live in their brains. But Obama and Hillary do. The Trump administration officials about the alleged shortcomings, right, okay. But on the day of the attacks, Saturday, March 15th, the discussion veered towards the operational. Wow, this was a long conversation. At 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time, Hegseth posted in the chat, in all caps, team update, y'all. We got an update. Russia, you listening? Hegseth got an update. China, you listening? Hegseth got an update. The text beneath this began, time now, 11:44 Eastern Standard Time, I guess, ET, or estimated time. Whether it's favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. CENTCOM, or Central Command, is the military combatant command for the Middle East. Hegseth text continues. 12:15, F-18s launch. First strike package. That's the estimated time. 13:45. It hasn't happened yet when they're releasing the timing. This is ridiculous. 13:45. That's 1:45. Trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Right. So they're releasing the information in advance. The first strike window starts, y'all, with F-18s. Target terrorist is at his known location So should be on time. Wow. Wow. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. Okay, so that's part of the sequencing. Let us pause here for a moment to underscore a point. The signal message shows that the U.S. Secretary of Defense texted a group that included a phone number unknown to him, Goldberg's cell phone. At 11:44 a.m., this was 31 minutes before the first U.S. warplanes launched, those F-16s, and 2 hours and 1 minute before the beginning of a period in which the primary target, the Houthi target terrorist, was expected to be killed by these American aircraft. I don't even, do you even think they got the target that they wanted? Was the target able to flee? Or did they just blow up an empty building? We don't know. Did they hit the target? You know, we don't know yet. If the text had been received by someone hostile to American interests or someone merely indiscreet and with access to social media, the Houthis would have had time to prepare for what was meant to be a surprise attack on the strongholds. The consequences for American pilots could have been catastrophic. So now we continue with more of the text. The Hegseth text continues. 210, right? 1410 is 210. That's military time for people that don't know. More F-18s, launch second strike package. Was it F-18s the first time? Okay. 15, 215. He's giving the whole breakdown of when it's going to happen. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. He's laying the whole damn thing out. In case you don't know, y'all, Russia and China, this is when the first bombs will definitely drop. It's almost like he's warning them. Y'all, I am sure myself, I don't know, obviously, I'm a civilian, but if I had to guess, it seems like Hegseth himself is a Russian asset warning them. This seems like it's pre-arranged. How can the Pentagon tell you to not use this and tell you specifically that foreign governments have access that signal chat, the signal chat app? Yet he's spelling it out to them on signal chat app or somebody, to everybody, what is about to happen before it happens, and putting it in bold text. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. It's almost like he's saying, run, y'all, run. You still got time. Pending early. It's like somebody told him, like Putin, warn us when it's about to happen so we have time to act. Pending earlier trigger-based targets. Look, 3. He's telling you 3 o'clock. Is something else is going to happen before 3. I mean, at 3:36 p.m., right? That's 15:36. F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline, y'all. Woo! We are currently clean. OPSEC, that is operational security. That means they're a go now for security. They're green lighting it, right? They're clean. Everything is okay to move forward, if you like. Godspeed to our warriors. So you can see this is an hour. It looks like they had an hour warning. No, 3 hours warning. Yep. Roughly 3 hours warning, y'all. From 12 to over 3. Yep, 3 hours and 15 minutes. Look at this. Look at this. You see that? 12:15. Yep. No. They had more than that. They had about 3 hours and 3.5 hours. Something like that. This is embarrassing. It's amazing nobody got hurt. I will say a prayer. Shortly after Vice President J.D. Vance texted the group, I will say a prayer for victory. Now it's 1:48. Waltz sent a following text containing the real-time of the intelligence about conditions at the attack site. Apparently, in Santa, VP building collapsed. Had multiple positive ID. Pete Carilla, the IC, amazing job. Waltz was referring to here to Hegseth's General Michael E. Carilla, the commander of Central Command and the intelligence community, or IC, The reference to multiple positive IDs suggests that the U.S. intelligence had ascertained the identities of the Houthi targets or targets using their human or technical assets. 6 minutes later, the vice president, apparently confused by Walt's message, wrote, "So it hasn't even happened yet." Okay. Oh no, they went back. Okay. What? At 2 p.m., Waltz responded, typing too fast. The first target, their stop missile guy. Damn, he's breaking it down who they are. Their top missile guy, I'm sorry. We had positive ID of him walking into the girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. Okay. So this is ongoing. Vance responded a minute later, excellent. 35 minutes after that, Ratcliffe, the CIA director, wrote, a good start, which Walt followed with the text containing the first emoji, an American flag emoji, and a fire emoji. The Houthi-run Yemeni Health Ministry reported that at least 53 people were killed in the strikes, a number that has not been independently verified. Late that afternoon, Hegseth posted, CENTCOM was on point. Notably, he then told the group that attacks would be continuing. This is a dumbass. Great jobs, y'all. Great job, y'all. More strikes ongoing for hours tonight. Damn, he's just letting them all know. If you didn't happen to, if you lived through the first strike, you still have time to escape. He basically, but on time, on target, and good readouts so far. It is still unclear why a journalist was added to the text exchange. Waltz, who invited Goldberg into the Signal chat, said yesterday that he was investigating how the heck he got into the room. Oh my goodness. Look at this, Michael Waltz. Team establishing a principal group for coordinated on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. My deputy Alex Wong is pulling together a trigger team at deputies agency's chief of staff level, following up from the meeting in the sit room this morning for action. These dumbasses. Items, and we'll be sending that out later this evening. What if they had these phones in? What if they brought these phones? You're not supposed to, but what if they brought them into the secure area where you're not supposed to have phones when you're discussing stuff? Could that be tapped? Could they hear? These people are idiots. Please provide the best staff POC for your team for us to coordinate with over the next couple of days and over the next weekend. Damn, they just keep. Had this journalist not have said anything, this would be ongoing and continuing, y'all. The president of the United States himself, his life could be in danger. And these dumbasses and Trump, you could tell. I mean, what type of president wouldn't get rid of all of them if they put his life in danger? Which president wouldn't? Only a dumbass. That kind of leads me to think that, question, does he know about this? Is he so dumb that he doesn't realize his own life is in danger? Or is it that he knows something else we don't know and is not telling the public? Mike Needham, for state, 429. Andy Baker for BP, 429. Joe Kent, DNI, 430. Dan Katz for Treasury, 439. They just all here. Pete Hegseth, Dan Caldwell for DOD, 453. He's on the job. One of these guys is in Russia, y'all. One of these people is in Russia on this text messaging. Brian McCormick for NSC. Mike Waltz, team, you should have a statement of conclusions with tasking per president guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. Oh, he's ready to go. Just proud of this moment. State and DOD, we developed suggestions, notification lists for regional allies and partners. Man, regional allies and partners don't want nothing to do with this. I mean, they'll take the information. Thank you. But they're scared of you, dumbass. This is crazy. Joint staff is sending this AM a more specific sequence of events. Damn! He was going to send more details in the coming days, and we will work with the DoD, Department of Defense, to ensure COS, AVP, I don't even know. Oh, okay. And POTUS, that's the president, are briefed. Okay. Oh, here's JD Vance, y'all. Team, I'm out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan. Michigan hates you, bro. But I think we are making a mistake. 3% of the U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of the European trade does. There's a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it is necessary. Stop. I'm going to tell you something. The U.S. had the lion's share, was a trade dominator because of its military. If you don't understand that, even if Europe has 40% of the trade is going through the Red Sea and going through the Mediterranean, even if that's so, your economy is embedded with the EU trade itself, dumbass. This is not just trinkets going through here. You have more to gain from trading with the EU, Canada, and your allies. This is ridiculous, y'all. This is utterly ridiculous. The strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message. But I am not sure the president is aware of how inconsistent this is with the messaging on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. Yo, let me tell y'all something. I don't know whose life this dude is trying to put in jeopardy. And it almost seems to me like there's about to be a serious weapons, like a Cold War. And that's not good for Africa. That's not good for Asia. That's not good. If you want the Europeans to patrol this, to spend more money, they'll make more weapons. But the issue is that what's going to happen with those weapons? Once you make them, to get your value back, you got to use them, right? I.e. weapons vacuum, i.e. Cold War, i.e. more death, more fighting. You already heard Trump is going down to the Congo. They're calling him to the Congo because they can't stop the people that are supplying the other weapons, which is China and Russia, by the way, and others likely, probably the United Arab Emirates already, right? But they're more concerned with the Rwandans and the Ugandans in the Congo, right? You see, weapons vacuum, these people, I mean, all it does is make people kill each other, y'all. Anyway, there's a further risk that we see a moderate and severe spike in oil prices. Didn't Trump just say he don't give a damn? We got all the oil we need. I mean, obviously he doesn't even understand how his own oil market works. The U.S. produces more oil than it ever has. The U.S. produces more oil than anyone else on earth, but it needs more oil because it controls and dominates the oil market. So it gets oil from others to secure that dominance. These people don't even understand how their own oil industry works. It's ridiculous. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there's a strong argument for delaying this a month. Doing the message work, see, look at this. This is in the morning, though. This is before. So they're showing you the messages in real time. Then Joe Kent, there's nothing sensitive, the actual real messages instead of the text. There's nothing time sensitive driving the timeline. We have the exact same options in a month. Okay, so they're talking about slowing it down. The Israelis will likely take strikes and therefore ask us for more support to replenish whatever they have used against the Houthis. But that's a major factor. That's a minor factor. I'm sorry. I will send you the unclassed data we pulled on the BAM shipping. Look at that. Okay, John Radcliffe, CIA director. From CIA perspective, we are mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for coverage. This is ridiculous because, in essence, they're telling you that Trump didn't have to do this. They're telling you, J.D. Vance is telling you, Trump only did it to send a message. That is the that is idiotic. That is idiotic. You're supposed to do things when you have imminent threats to your assets. Not to, who cares if you send in a message? What kind of message you going to send? Everybody already knows you bomb shit up. This is crazy. This is ridiculous. The message that's being sent here is that the United States' own military is in danger. Its own president is in danger. Its own staff is in danger. The appointees, the American people are in danger. That's what this shows. These people are idiotic. Pete Hegseth, the head of the Department of Defense. I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out. Economy, Ukraine, peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused. Everybody, do you read? Do you watch TV? Do you watch YouTube? Do you know how many people are on YouTube? Do you know how hard it is to keep something like this off of YouTube? Which is why, I mean, it's not like they're going to know more about the Houthis just because you decide to tell them one day or a month goes by, which is why we would need to stay focused on one, Biden failed, and two, Iran funded. Yeah, see, they're already exposing what their messaging, their manipulation messaging is going to be. Waiting a few weeks or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. One, this leaks. Duh. And we took indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first. This dude, they have just sent a message to Israel what their logic is. This is retarded, and the rest of the world. This is stupid. Or Gaza ceasefire falls apart. Man, they're not listening to your ceasefire options anyway. They're still following the Biden. They wanted to stick with Biden's proposal ceasefire. They already said that numerous times. You know, these people, they do everything wrong. Everything wrong. And we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. We are prepared to execute, and if I had final go or no go vote, I believe we should. This not about, okay, this is a typo he made. This is not about the Houthis. I see it as two things. Why are they talking about what the hell this is about? They haven't discussed this shit prior. Why are they debating this right here? This makes no sense. If you have to debate, why do you even have an airstrike planned? Why do you even have a strike planned at all? This makes no sense. Restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest, and reestablished deterrence, which Biden cratered. Here we go again. Did Biden crater it? Do y'all agree with that? Where did Biden not back up? Biden was already bombing the Houthis. Biden was already funding Israel with weapons. Biden was already funding Ukraine. They're the ones who held it back. You see this, y'all? What world do these people live in? I mean, is this on purpose? You either have to be extremely hard-headed to come with that rationale, or something else was going on here that he's aware of. But we can easily pause. If we do, I will do all we can to enforce 100% OPSEC. I welcome other thoughts. They're playing around with this like these are decisions you just make over an ice cream one day. Or over a drink in a bar. Okay, Michael Waltz is back. The trade figures we have are 15% of the global and 30% of container. You see? It's difficult to break that down to U.S. specific because much of the container either going through the Red Sea containers, the Red Sea, they're talking about shipping containers, still or around the Cape of Good Hope, or components going to Europe that turns into manufacturers' goods, transatlantic trade to the U.S. See, exactly. So this dude Hegseth doesn't know what the hell. No, JD Vance doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. None of them do. This guy, Michael Waltz, actually, at least he said, broke something down about that. That makes no sense. The idea that Europe benefits us more from the U.S. Y'all, the U.S. GDP, the U.S. trade dominance is because its military has been out there. They're the ones talking about bringing the military back, which actually puts trade in jeopardy. And now they're arguing against it again, and they already have a strike planned. This is ridiculous. Whether we pull the plug or not today, European natives or European navies do not have the capability to defend against these type of sophisticated anti-ship cruise missiles. The drones the Houthis are now using. So whether it is now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the president request, we are working with the DOD and the State Department of Defense and the state to determine how to compile the costs associated and levy them on the Europeans. You dumbasses. These are people that got trade dominance, and they're talking about levying something. Levying what? It will only come back to your own consumers. Admittedly, because a large percentage of the trade that the EU would get is for parts that they use to manufacture to sell goods to Americans that Americans want for a cheap price. This is the same dumbass shit as the tariffs. Their thinking is backwards. The U.S. was getting the lion's share of global trade because of its military. These people screwed it up. And the only reason why the American citizen haven't been treated well is because of politics inside of the country. The American citizen could have been having universal health care with the economy the way it was. There was no reason. It was all politics. They could be having fairer housing and free education. That's all an internal issue of politics, but they have the money and always have had it more than anyone else that provides that to their own citizens. This is ridiculous. Michael Waltz, as we stated in the first PC, we have the fundamental decision of allowing the sea lanes to remain closed or to reopen them. You're just going to create a war that will affect your trade any damn way. This is stupid. We are the only ones with the capability, unfortunately. From the messaging standpoint, we absolutely add this to the two of horribles on why Europeans must invest in their defense. If Europeans invest in their defense, which they will and which they are and which they always have been, they're going to get more of a line share. They're going to get more of a share of that trade. Just like anybody else would. You don't want the line share of that trade? Okay. Don't forget, you're buying other stuff from them. You're getting other stuff from the region like oil. See, this is what doesn't make sense. This is what doesn't make sense. If you think we should do it, let's do it. Let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. That's JD Vance, y'all. This dude is crazy, man. This dude is crazy. All right, hold on. Let me just check it. This is ridiculous, y'all. Don't forget to hit the like button, please, by the way, and share. Please share. It will help. It will help out a lot. At least help people get the information out if you like it. But in any case, let's see here. Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things, in other words, what he's saying is lying to y'all, manipulation. He's ready to do that, JD Vance, all the time. By the way, he's the idiot going to Greenland, a place where they hate him. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Do you understand how conflicting his message is? He's talking about Europe, but you want oil from Saudi Arabia. These and other places in that region. These guys are retarded. What does he think he's getting out of Libya? Cookies and crackers? What the hell? This is ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. All right, back to Pete Hegseth. VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. I'm going to tell you, y'all, Canada is not freeloading. Mexico is not freeloading. Europe is not freeloading. What you had was cooperation. And what these people are doing is destroying it. And if you think less people cooperating with you is not going to harm your GDP, you are a fool. But Mike is correct. We're the only ones right now. They're making other trade deals. I'm telling you, that's what they're doing. Mexico, Canada, and the EU. They're going around these U.S. tariffs. All you're doing is isolating yourself. And the GDP will feel the effects. Next year, the GDP is going to be lower than for the first time than it's ever been. I'm telling you. I mean, then it's declined in recent years. But Mike, in the last 20 years, but Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet, on our side of the ledger, who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question, it's like they're patting themselves on the back. These are like people that I have to ask myself, like, they act like they did it all themselves. They act like this is not the American people doing this. They act like the American people don't have a say and didn't have a say. They used to have a say in everything, which is why the GDP was so strong, which is why the economy was booming. And these people are acting like it's just something they inherited personally, like their daddy gave it to them. But Mike is correct. We're the only ones on the planet, blah, blah, blah. Question is timing. Okay, question is timing. I feel like now is a good a time as any. Given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes, I think we should go. But POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. So this is all happening 24 hours before. These conversations started 24 hours before, so they didn't go into all the. This is ridiculous. As I heard it, the president was clear, green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. Does the Department of Defense do that? Does the CIA do that? Who is this talking? SM. Who is SM? I'm going to find that out. Okay. We also need to, why doesn't the president just handle that? He's the one handling trade tariffs. We also need to figure out how to enforce such requirements. E.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation, they're acting like this was a one-shot. This one-shot restores freedom of navigation. No, this is the everyday thing they're threatening trade. You know, the Houthis. Not just the Houthis. They're talking about it like one little operation secures it forever. No, this is a daily thing going on. Europe does, at least it was under Biden. They acting like they have one mission that can accomplish all that. Okay, anyway. They're just like mentally masturbating. Pete has said, I agree. But you are the Department of Defense. Why do you care? That's not your job to tell Europe what they should pay. This is retarded. Okay, so now we're getting into the details again, which we already went over from the start. So, yes, I will say a prayer. We went through that. So I'm going to drop, can I drop this in the chat? I can't put this in the chat right here, but let me see. Yeah, they went through this, patting each other on the back. Great work. Yes, y'all. Houthis PC small group. Anybody that wants to know the group, here it is. That's what it's called. Check for it. I'm sure you'll find it on your Signal app. Just look for Houthi PC small group and ask to be added. This is retarded. Oh, Scott B is SB. Okay, I think that's the White House something. Someone. Okay, this is ridiculous. Who's Brian? Joe Kit. SM. Okay. There's a whole lot of people in this chat, yo. There's a whole lot of people. How many people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 people. Do you know how hard it is for 19 people to keep a secret? Yo, there it is, y'all. There you have seen it. Now, let's go over to the next situation here. This is just utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. I have nothing. I don't know what to say here, but this is just too much. Now, let me go over to here. See if I can get this up, the media player. Pull this up real quick. Okay. Yes, here we go. Now let's see what this fool got to say here. Let me pull it back. This is Trump denying in denial space here. Oh.
Your reaction to the story in the Atlantic that said that some of your your reaction to the story in the Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive material.
This is classic denial Trump. I don't know nothing about it. I don't have any idea. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? I don't have any idea what's going on. Tell me about it. What's going on? Listen to this. This is how you know he's utterly lying, but he is a pathological liar. Like, he can lie. I mean, he's a narcissist that pathologically lies. Like most narcissists, if they put in a corner or close enough, under pressure at least, not in a corner, but under pressure, this is how they react.
Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it.
Look at that. I don't know anything about it. He knows nothing about that group. So all those 18 people, they never told him nothing about that. He knows nothing about it. Not only does he not know, I mean, he doesn't know anything about how they communicate just between each other on the daily. Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic.
That's another thing. He always tries to downplay the credibility of the source. He doesn't know anything. The Atlantic, he thought they were just going out of business and stuff. They're just,
The Atlantic, to me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using.
Yeah, inform Trump. He doesn't know anything about it. Tell him.
Signal.
Look at his eyes. You see
To
what he did?
coordinate on sensitive materials.
Check out his
You're
eyes.
saying that they had what?
Watch when he closes them.
They were using Signal to coordinate.
No,
I think
right
it's
before.
not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using.
To me, it's a magazine that's going about it. I'm not a.
Response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
with the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
So he's trying to reaffirm to people that by asking them these questions, this is what a pathological liar does. He's making the point to go on record to prove to everybody that he has to ask questions himself because, of course, he knows nothing about it.
Yes. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it.
Folks, the White House and their appointees, their staff, they have been busted. Cold busted. There is not one single thing about this that does not spell danger. And the craziest part about it is that this man doesn't understand how that could even, what they were doing could even threaten his own safety. This is insane. But he's a narcissist. So if there's a plot, people using him, he's the type, all you have to do is feed his ego. And he could be completely unaware of how deep the plot is. He doesn't even know, but he knows enough. His ego is there to where he has to completely deny it because his ego won't let him even deal with it, you know? But Trump seems like a person that is not in control of the ship. That is for damn sure. He knows nothing about it. He also has no accountability. He claims no accountability. And to make it worse, his own life could be threatened because you don't know how many other messages, how often they use that system, and how many top secret things they discussed. You're only knowing who released the Atlantic because they happen to be in this one chat group. It's not the only chat group they probably had. I'm telling you. Donnie, what's up, bro? Oh my goodness. You following this stuff, Donnie? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Yeah.
You're telling me about it for the first time. Anybody else?
You're telling me about it for the first time, y'all. Yeah.
Monday, this announcement on Monday.
All right. In any case, let's go to the next one. Let's see here. Yeah, there's more going on to this, and let's see. Is it this one? 2 seconds. Let me pull this back up. Can I go in here? Let's go back. Right. Now let's go back to the chats. Let's pull up Michael Nance here. Black Man Spy. For those that don't know him, Michael Nance is a security expert. He's worked in, overseas, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and has an extensive record working as a consultant and also in the military, working in this kind of stuff, information sharing, right? Information gathering, right? For the Navy, I believe. But he has a warning to people. He pulled out a map. Let me just go to the map here. And he's going to explain some things.
Because generally, agencies like this, the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians, they try to stay years ahead of what's out there in terms of intercept and hacking technology. So, Malcolm, you're telling me all this, but you're still not explaining how this is the greatest computer, how this is the greatest compromise and possible breach in American history. Okay, I'm going to do this shortly because we're going long on this. So, this is a chart that I developed called How to Make Us Stupid. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to explain this chart to you. In the middle of this chart is my target. Way back in the oldie days, we really did have to use the vacuum cleaner method to scan the sky to get electronic signals and find whatever it is that we want. In the mobile phone world, it became much more difficult. Everyone had a phone. Every individual had a phone. And the best way to get that information from your target you want is go after the target. In this case, a guy who was a Fox News host who used to drink a lot. So he is now Secretary of Defense. That Secretary of Defense is not using the secure cryptographic systems that are on his desk, which he talks to his combatant commanders with. He is not talking on the red phones that he could call the White House with. He is talking on a mobile phone, which could have been issued to him by the government, which may not have cryptographic security systems, but more than likely, it was his private phone. Based on what we're seeing, it likely was his private phone. Because who wants to change their number, right? You got to sit there, you got to go through all those text messages, tell everybody who this, right? New phone, who that. So once we know your number, and we're going to know your number because you're Secretary of Defense now. And I'm going to exert every resource in my government to find your phone. And you know how we're going to get your phone number? I'm going to tell you how we're going to get your phone number.
He's talking about Pete Hegseth when he says Secretary of Defense. And he's a drunkard, right? He's a man who drinks alcohol and is still an alcoholic, functioning, if you want to call it functioning, right? Because, alcohol is a funny kind of drug, but he's not functioning well, but he's got a job, right? And it's likely that they've targeted him a long time ago. But in any case,
We're going to go find the freaking producers over at Fox News, and we're going to ask somebody, or somebody's going to tell us, or somebody who was a friend of a friend who got invited has your number in their phone, like your homies, your wife, or your boo-boo. And I'm not saying he has one, I'm just saying this is an example, right? All of these people are not the Secretary of Defense, and they do not have secure phones. So if I want Pete Hegseth's number, I'm going to go to somebody who's on the periphery, who has Pete Hegseth's number, right? And I'm going to watch all of their communications and watch their interactions with you. Take their phone schedules, their phone logs, and find out all the intersecting relationships between you and them. Then I have a way in, because you can spoof them. That means pretend to be those people. You can infect their phones to infect your phone. And now, because you're carrying this signals intelligence bonanza on your person at all times, and it's not secure, and you're not in a sensitive compartment and information facility where you're supposed to leave your phone out there, you're Secretary of Defense, you get into your armored Suburban, this thing is on you, could be collecting, could be transmitting, or if it's not transmitting, could be scheduled to transmit at a later date and time. Could be some form of burst communications. Could be in an app out there that when you open it, right, like, some app out there like Signal, it automatically communicates with whoever has installed it and is passing information on. It could be a giant microphone to China. And wherever you carry it. See this blue circle? That is your top secret security environment. But your phone is in it, which is why we leave them outside of the skiff. We don't want top secrets that are being discussed to be transmitted into the phone. We want you to be a traitor and actually pick up your phone and call the enemy so we can intercept you because we're better than this and then send you to prison. I'm looking at you, Edward Snowden, and all the rest of you guys who are out there stealing secrets and ran off. So your communications are now within the top secret work environment.
Let me pause this. There's another aspect to this. As I mentioned before, there was a liaison in Russia at that time meeting with the Kremlin while this was going on. Some point where this was going on. Nobody knows exactly the details of that, but that day, yes. And the thing about it is that you don't even know if the liaison was sharing this information with Putin. You don't know. And so for those of you out there wondering where Putin stands on things like this, they're going to find those things out too, ironically. But people should wonder, what is Putin's overall goal? And I've been saying this for a while. I said this a long time ago. The goal is to start a Cold War, because in a Cold War, he can sell weapons. And that's what he's going to sell weapons. These weapons won't be that great, by the way. They won't be the greatest. They won't be as good as China's, I don't think. Not that a superpower doesn't give their best weapons over to anybody, right? They limit that. The U.S. was giving old weaponry to Ukraine under Biden and pretty much still does. They get newer weaponry from other countries now that the U.S. is pulled out. But just keep that in mind as Malcolm Nance breaks this down.
Your non-top secret homies, girlfriends, wives are now inside there. And if I can quote the movie Dr. Strangelove, I told you to never call me in here. Right? This is where the big board is. Right? Don't call. And to tell you the truth, the landline in the movie Dr. Strangelove was 1,000 times more secure than this. Now, Malcolm, what are all those orange boxes up there? Oh, those are the hostile government entities. Those blue lines are them targeting you. And they don't just target you, they're going to target everybody around you. You are a bubble of targeteering. And they will, because you are Secretary of Defense, who is a former Fox News host that was known to drink, they will use every method of intelligence access on your ass. Everyone, including sending women in front of you, sending you bottles of alcohol and drinks, stroking your ego. In summary, in my world, when we get access or have the opportunity to access every one of these individuals' own top secret working environment, and we can now hear, intercept, monitor, figure out what these people are doing. This isn't the nose of the camel under the tent. This is the camel stampeding the tent. The camel owns your tent, and it's eating hors d'oeuvres, and you're the snack. Every time you send a text to your boo-boo, they know about it. Send a nudie to your homies, they know about it. Lie to your wife, they know about it. Talk bad about the Commerce Secretary with the Director of National Intelligence, who should know better because they're responsible for top secret information in 19 agencies.
Right. And that, that goes back to my question. That goes back to my question. Let me see here. That goes back to my question. Is he already a Russian asset? How long have they been targeting him? And you could be sure he has been a target for sure. Why wouldn't he be? All secretaries of defense, all personnel on that level, high level personnel, are targets just naturally. Whether they get targeted or not, it depends on how well they keep their stuff together, how well they follow the protocols, what they're known for, what are their weaknesses, what weaknesses do they show. When you show weaknesses, that makes you the target of this type of stuff. So why would he invite people and share that information? At least, why would he share the information on the chat? Did he already know that the chat is being bugged or that is hacked? Does he know that in advance? But who knows? Who knows? That we're going to find out, and we're going to find out the hard way, unfortunately.
These guys know about it. In summary, if this occurred to anyone in the United States government other than these morons, they would be fired and prosecuted. Donald Trump has already waved his magic wand of stupid and has absolved all of them. Tulsi Gabbard spent the whole day lying, saying nothing top secret was discussed there. Really? The aircraft, the bombs, the targets, the strike package, the name of the person you're going to kill. Pretty damn sure that that's code word material that shouldn't be on Signal. Now, as a salty old senior chief cryptologist, here's what I really feel, because I don't think that I've expressed my anger enough here today. I would express it this way if I was standing there. Hold on, let me get into position, because this is important that you understand precisely how I would be. I would be standing there with my NSA coffee mug, having a sip, and somebody would say, "Hey, Senior Chief, did you hear that there was a top secret working group with the Secretary of Defense and everybody else on Signal?" And I would, one, try not to spill my coffee, and two, the first words out of my mouth would be, "Are you effing kidding me? Are you kidding me? Why do these morons need to feel the need to make me the Samuel L. Jackson of cryptology? No one should be doing war plans this way. Use the secure NSA-approved cryptographic systems that are sitting on your GD desk. Make a Russian-Chinese intercept operator cry. Because guess what? They're all getting medals right now. I said yesterday on a forum, if you want to gouge how much intelligence Russia has gotten from us, don't intercept their communications. They're secure. Start monitoring all the champagne and caviar stores in Moscow, because they're buying them all up. And that would be an easier target to monitor, right? And the deliveries are all happening to GRU and FSB and SVR headquarters. In China, they're probably giving them Teslas.
Yep.
Because they're crappy cars. But these guys are laughing their asses off at us. And if they weren't in our phones and were trying to get to these phones and Signal, They now have their own working groups going backwards and scrubbing the giant servers to see if they have had access to your phone and can get something of historic value and nature out of it. Well, boys and girls, I'm glad we had this talk. But on the other hand, every one of these idiots needs to be fired. And you and I both know that's not going to happen. Because Donald Trump, no matter the fact that every word in his administration is likely in the hands of these intelligence agencies, and they are working us day and night, and they're ready to see your phone number change, and you're going to send that to your boo-boo, and they're going to be back in. We are purely screwed here. And the axis of incompetence of these idiots, they don't care whether they've damaged the national security of the United States. They're masters of the universe. And they don't have to deal with people like me. Because if I was in the senior enlisted near Secretary Hesketh in the Pentagon, and I saw this, and I'd go, "What are you doing, Major?" And he'd be like, "I'm talking about boo-boo on signal." In the skiff, or in his office, I'd grab his phone, run down the hallway, open the burn bag chute, which leads to a furnace, and I would throw it the hell in, and then go to the president myself and say, "He's an idiot. Your security of your nation has just been compromised. What are you going to do? Kick me out of the Navy?" Well, that's what should have happened in the fantasy baseball world of common decency and people that actually cared about the United States.
All right, that was Malcolm Nance, cryptologist by profession, but in other words, he's a guy that goes out and gets information, does research on the ground, logistics for the U.S. government. But he is a consultant now, works with Ukraine, and but this guy has an extensive record working for the U.S. government and doing this stuff in the past for many years. That's his career, right? So he's a career man, and it just once again, the only reason why the public knows about this is because of the Atlantic newspaper. We should be thanking them, because none of these people wanted to let us know anything. And let me tell you, because of this, it is it's not just likely, but this could be far worse than just this one blunder. And that means all of these people's lives could be in danger, including Donald Trump's. Not that people give a damn, but it would matter. It would matter, I'm telling you, because as you know, Russia, Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy who's given credit for, who pulled the trigger on Kennedy, right? He was in Russia for months. He had defected to Russia before this even happened, before he even killed Kennedy. You see? So, and look at what happened. People ran around. There was news articles. There was this push to make it seem like, this is Kennedy. Got something to do with Kennedy's granddaddy and the mafia and all of this stuff. Yeah, disinformation was put out there so you would be off the track of where Lee Harvey Oswald was and who he was collaborating with. And they already admitted it, that they had plans. But they say, the Russians say that they stopped their plans before he had done this, which was how long before? But he trained in Russia. So, folks, this could have huge consequences. But for the United States military, for the executive branch, and if I was the military, I would consider the executive branch breached right now by foreign intelligence, because there's some questions that still haven't been answered. How do you know how much of this Trump really knows? How do you know if this was not done on purpose and he already knew about this? How do you know the only thing that happened here was the Atlantic found out. That obviously wasn't part of the plan because they leaked it to the public. But how do you know Donald Trump isn't doing this on purpose? How do you know this wasn't prearranged by the Russians, a way to convey top secret information by his top administration heads of departments using that app in the first place? You don't even know how many times they have used it before or what other information they have shared on it. People need to be thanking The Atlantic. Go get a subscription to The Atlantic. Find a way to support The Atlantic, because you would not have known. And this is a game changer. This means they are cold busted. No matter how you want to look at it, the United States military cannot look at the executive branch or any appointees as if they are not compromised. That would make zero sense. The Pentagon itself released a warning a week before this incident even happened. And yet these bozos kept using that app. Why do you think the United States Pentagon released that warning? Were they aware somehow that some of these people actually use those apps? Yeah, so let's segue. Let's go over to the hearings now, y'all. Let's check it out. See what's going on here. It was a doozy. Let's go.
Some may say, how can
just Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz. Thank you all for your appearance. Thank you for your leadership. I also want to recognize the hard work and dedication of the thousands of men and women in our intelligence community whom you're here to represent today. Their successes are seldom celebrated. Their accomplishments are often unseen. But our nation is grateful to each one for the vital work they do to keep our nation safe, prosperous, and free. Our annual Worldwide Threats hearing allows for the American people to receive an unvarnished and unbiased account of the real and present dangers that our nation faces. As we will hear from our witnesses, many of the threats we face are truly existential. Communist China is actively working to replace the United States as the world's dominant superpower. China uses coercive military, economic, and influence operations, short of war, to shape a world favorable to its interests and hostile to ours. These methods include the biggest peacetime military buildup in history, rapidly expanding its nuclear forces, providing critical assistance to help Russia withstand U.S. sanctions, obscuring its role in accelerating the spread of COVID-19 beyond Wuhan, turning a blind eye to Chinese companies that enable the production of fentanyl flooding into the United States, and putting space weapons on orbit, among other tactics. Iran, despite setbacks inflicted on its so-called axis of resistance by Israel over the last year, still aims to destroy what it calls the little Satan, the state of Israel, and what it calls the great Satan, the United States. It continues to arm Yemeni rebels to attack global shipping, though these outlaws have suffered terrible losses over the last 2 weeks, thanks to decisive action by President Trump and our brave troops. I commend the President, Mike Waltz, Pete Hegseth, and his entire national security team for these actions. Iran also continues its decades-long effort to develop surrogate networks inside the United States to threaten.
I mean, he's thanking the very people that have had the biggest breach of security in modern times.
U.S. citizens. Furthermore, Iran's nuclear program continues apace. It's actively developing multiple space launch vehicles, which are little more than flimsy cover for an intercontinental ballistic missile program that could hit the United States in a matter of years. But all this will soon come to an end. The supreme leader of Iran now faces a stark choice, thanks to President Trump. The supreme leader can fully dismantle his nuclear program, or he can have it dismantled for him. Finally, today's report also acknowledges
Or guess what? Everything, all of that goes down the tubes because guess who's actually helping Russia and China with their actual actions? I mean, this guy, he must be a Republican. Let me just get right past that. You know, they do this. This is Republicans and Democrats here. So let's hear what he got to say.
And this year's assessment is clearly one of the most complicated and challenging in my tenure on the committee. And I want to get into that in a moment, but I want to first of all address the recent story that has broken in the news. Yesterday, we stunningly learned that senior members of this administration, and according to the reports, two of our witnesses here today were members of a group chat that discussed highly sensitive and likely classified information that supposedly even included weapons packages, targets, and timing, and included the name of an active CIA agent. Putting aside for a moment that classified information should never be discussed over an unclassified system, it's also just mind-boggling to me that all these senior folks were on this line and nobody bothered to even check. Security Hygiene 101. Who are all the names? Who are they? Well, it apparently included a journalist. And no matter how much the Secretary of Defense or others want to disparage him, this journalist had at least the ethics to not report, I think, everything he heard. Question I raise is like, everybody on this committee gets briefed on security protocols. We're told you don't make calls outside of SCIFs of this kind of classified nature. We don't know, and I'm going to ask, obviously. Director Gabbard is the executive in charge of all, keeping our secrets safe.
So
were these government devices?
Just the senators and the congressional members are actually told about all these security procedures, and yet the appointees by Trump don't follow any of it. What's the point? They don't follow what the Pentagon says about security, which is the same procedure. They don't follow what their own security analysts say or advisors say, order the congressional members or the Senate members to follow. This is extraordinary.
Were they personal devices? Have the devices been collected to make sure there's no malware? There's plenty of declassified information that shows that our adversaries, China and Russia, are trying to break in to encrypted systems like Signal. I can just say this, if this was the case of a military officer or an intelligence officer and they had this kind of behavior, they would be fired. I think this is one more example of the kind of sloppy, careless, incompetent behavior, particularly towards classified information, that this is not a one-off or a first-time error. Let me take a couple minutes and review some of the other reckless choices that this administration has made regarding our national security. We all recall, it seems like it wasn't that long ago, but less than 2 months ago, in the first 2 weeks, the administration canceled all U.S. foreign assistance. Now, some may say, how bad can that be? It's foreign assistance. Well, U.S. foreign assistance paid for the units in Ukraine that provide air defense to civilian cities being attacked by Russia. Foreign assistance paid for guarding camps in Syria where ISIS fighters are detained. Foreign assistance paid for programs abroad that ensure that diseases like Ebola don't come home. And until recently, it paid for the construction of a railway in Africa that would have helped given the United States much needed access to critical minerals in Congo. Now that project, China's going to try to finance it. As well, In the first 2 weeks, Director Patel, the administration fired several of our most experienced FBI agents, including the head of the Criminal Investigative Division, the head of the Intelligence Division, the head of the Counterterrorism Division, the heads of the New York, Washington, and Miami field office, all individuals who were distinctly and directly responsible for helping to keep America safe. The irony in a little bit was the recently dismissed head of the Counterterrorism Division was involved in disrupting the ISIS attacks planned for Oklahoma City and Philadelphia, and helped lead the effort to bring to justice the key planner of the Abbey Gate bombing in Afghanistan. It killed 13 U.S. servicemen and 150 civilians. That very Abbey Gate effort was actually praised by the president in his State of the Union address. F-35s. I've heard from Microsoft and Google directly and Amazon that they're having questions about whether they can still sell their services. We've also seen foreign adversaries and friends take advantage of this rift in our national security areas and our scientists. Germany has already put out ads trying to attract some of our best scientists who've been rifted. And the Chinese intelligence agencies are posting on social media sites in the hopes of luring individuals with that national security clearance who've been pushed out, perhaps arbitrarily, to come into their service. So no, the signal fiasco is not a one-off.
You know, this may have accelerated the decline of the U.S. by 1,000 times, just this one thing. You know, it's okay to decline. I mean, like, you know, the growth stopping. That's one thing. There's a lot of things you can do politically to advert decline. But this may have sped that up, not just the stopping of growth, but actual decline. You know, shit is in the people's hands right now, yo. Power to the people. Stuff is in the people's hands right now. This administration is essentially destroying the U.S. rapidly.
It is unfortunately a pattern we're seeing too often repeated. I fear that we feel the erosion of trust from our workplace, from our companies, and from our allies and partners can't be put back in the bottle overnight. Make no mistake, these actions make America less safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think they're being conservative in their remarks, too.
Before I turn to the witnesses' hearing, I want to welcome everyone in our large audience today. I also want to note that we will not tolerate any disruptions of the witnesses' testimony or senators' questions and the witnesses' answers. You'll note that we have a large contingent of Capitol Police in the room. Any disruptions, either opposed or in favor to the witnesses, will result in prompt removal from the hearing room, and my encouragement to the U.S. Attorney to throw the book at the person disrupting the hearing. No offense, but we all came to hear the witnesses, no one else in the room. Director Gabbard, I understand you'll make a statement for the panel of witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity for us to be here to present you the intelligence community's 2025 annual threat assessment. I'm joined here this morning by my colleagues from the CIA, DIA, FBI, and NSA. Our testimony offers the collective assessment of the 18 U.S. intelligence elements making up the U.S. Intel community and draws on intelligence collection and information available to the IC from open source and private sector and the expertise of our analysts. This report evaluates what the IC assesses most threatens our people and our nation's ability to live in a peaceful, free, secure, and prosperous society.
That's you. That's who you are. You're the threat.
As you know, we face an increasingly complex threat environment that is threatening us here at home and our interests abroad. I'll begin by focusing on what most immediately and directly threatens the United States and the well-being of the American people. Non-state criminal groups and terrorists putting American lives and livelihood at risk. Then I'll focus on the key nation states who have the capability to threaten the interests of the United States. In this complex...
Is she not going to start off with the with the leaks, but they're going to go right to it.
Environment, non-state and state actors are able to exploit or take advantage of the effects of each other's activities. Conventional and asymmetrical capabilities, even the traditionally weakest of actors are able to acquire from available advanced technologies, creates an even more complex and serious threat landscape.
Speed her up, you know.
First, I'll highlight the threats presented by several non-state actors. Cartels, gangs, and other transnational criminal organizations in our part of the world are engaging in a wide array of illicit activity, from narcotics trafficking to money laundering to smuggling of illegal immigrants and human trafficking, which endanger the health, welfare, and safety of everyday Americans. Based on the latest reporting available for a year-long period ending October 2024, cartels were largely responsible for the deaths of more than 54,000 U.S. citizens from synthetic opioids. Mexico-based transnational criminal organizations, or TCOs, are the main suppliers of illicit fentanyl to the U.S. market and are adapting to enforcement and regulatory pressures by using multiple sources and methods to procure precursor chemicals and equipment, primarily from China and India, many of which are dual-use chemicals used in legitimate industries. Independent fentanyl producers are also increasingly fragmenting the drug trade in Mexico. The availability of precursor chemicals and ease of making illicit fentanyl have enabled independent actors to increase illicit fentanyl production and smuggling operations in Mexico. Cartels are profiting from human trafficking and have likely facilitated more than 2 million illegal immigrants encountered by law enforcement at the U.S. southwest border in 2024 alone, straining our vital resources and putting the American people at risk. Criminal groups drive much of the unrest and lawlessness in the Western Hemisphere. They also engage in extortion, weapons and human smuggling, and other illicit and dangerous revenue-seeking operations, including kidnappings for ransom, forced labor, and sex trafficking. These and other human traffickers exploit vulnerable individuals and groups by promising well-paying jobs while confiscating their identification documents. They operate in the shadows, exploiting lawlessness in various areas and using coercion and intimidation to control their victims. While these key drivers of migrants are expected to persist, heightened U.S. border security enforcement...
Anyway, let's get past that because we know she want to talk about migrants, right? Let's get to the main stuff. Here we go.
Against the American people.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Witness will suspend.
Oh, damn. It's getting live in there, yo. Go ahead.
Kim views his strategic weapons advances since 2019, its deepening ties with Russia, and North Korea's economic durability is strengthening his negotiating position against
Who's she talking about? Deep ties with Russia.
Washington's demands for denuclearization and lessening his need for sanctions relief. North Korea is probably prepared to conduct another nuclear test on short notice and continues to flight test its ICBMs to demonstrate their increasing capabilities as leverage in future negotiations. Since 2022, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea have grown closer. Removing the accelerant of the war in Ukraine is unlikely to revert these bilateral relationships to a pre-war 2021 baseline, leaving room for new strategic priorities and world events to create new incentives or challenges to their currently high levels of cooperation. Russia has been a catalyst for much of this expanded cooperation, driven heavily by the support it has needed for its war effort against Ukraine, including protection from U.S. and Western sanctions. In addition to its exchange of military and other resource capabilities with North Korea, Russia has relied more heavily on China's financial and defense industry backing, and also has increased combined military exercises with China to signal fortitude against the United States and U.S. allies in the Asia-Pacific region. With Iran, Russia has also expanded financial ties to mitigate sanctions. Iran has become a critical military supplier to Russia, especially of UAVs, in exchange for Russian technical support for Iranian weapons, intelligence, and advanced cyber capabilities. In conclusion,
Come on, let's get to it.
to conduct these operations in Arkansas and in every single state across the union. Since February 5th, we've assisted with the arrest of 8, and that was just a
to the Biden administration.
Director Ratcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, if you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is
I've got a series of
end-to-end decryption. So,
all right, there we go. Now we're in it. Okay.
Discussing the Yemen war plans.
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security
Because
Council.
it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
Is it
stated,
classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Senator, I was on a signal messaging group.
So you were the John Ratcliffe on that chat?
I was.
Thank you.
Can I provide some context, Senator, to that?
Yes, but I've got a series of questions.
Well, but I think it's important because at the outset you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps. So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration.
So I'm going to let this play. I'm going to look up something real quick while he says that, because I know the Pentagon just released something.
To the Biden administration.
Director Ratcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, if you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is.
I've got a series
end-to-end decryption. So
to
finish,
I understand encryption.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a signal message group were entirely permissible.
On the 18th of March, which is before this happened, on the 18th of March, y'all, the Pentagon issued a warning about signal messaging app on March 18th, 2025. The advisory cautioned against using signal for transmitting information even if unclassified due to identified vulnerabilities. Specifically, it heightened that Russian hacking groups were exploiting signals linked devices featured to spy on encrypted conversations. This is from the Pentagon, March 18th. This warning was issued shortly before the incident where high-ranking officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, inadvertently included a journalist in a signal group chat discussing military operations in Yemen. This mishap led to the exposure of sensitive information and raised significant concerns about the use. Now, see, they had been warned. Today's the 26th. When did this happen? Let me see here. When did the leak happen involving Atlantic News? Let me see here. I just want to get this while he's testifying. So you can see how, look at that. That's March 24th. So how many days is that past that moment? That's 2. That's 6 days. That's a week before they issued a warning, the Pentagon. So this man, y'all, you could see is clearly lying, basically.
And lawful, and did not include classified information.
Well, we will make that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Let me go on. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
There was no classified material that was shared in that
So then
signal
if there was no
check.
classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to. The chairman came. The chairman came.
Administration to the Biden
Director
administration.
Ratcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement.
You see, he's trying to blame this on Biden, but the truth is he was warned a week before this. All of them were warned by the Pentagon a week before this to stop using the app, and they kept using it. So again, I'm going to ask the question: was this intentional?
Point. Well,
If you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is
Sir, I've got a series of
end-to-end decryption. So
It
to
is,
finish,
I understand
it is
encryption.
permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels.
Right.
So
Not at the time they were using it. You see, he's manipulating that. This is in front of representatives, elected officials. This is ridiculous, y'all. In other words, he's lying to the American people, or being purposely, or being manipulative, or misinforming.
those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with
So are
those
you saying
processes,
that-
and finally, just please, so my communications, to be clear, in a signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
The Pentagon warned you 6 days before this mishap happened, or this event happened with the Houthis and the leaking of the information to the Atlantic. They told everyone, all these departments, stop using Signal.
But we will make
clear.
that determination.
Signal had been compromised. That's the most important thing to remember. They informed everyone that Signal had been compromised. And if it's been compromised, why would you use it?
Because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Let me go on. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
Oh,
There was no classified material
Sorry.
that was shared in that
So then
signal
if there were no
check.
classified material, share it with the committee. The chairman.
March 21st, 2025,
The chairman came. Dr. Patel, has the FBI launched any investigation of this?
Senator, I was just briefed about it late last night, this morning. I don't have an update.
I would like to get an answer by the end of the day.
At this point in the ordinary course of affairs, I would recognize Senator Collins. She asked me to express to you that she is under the weather this morning. She regrets her absence, but anticipates submitting written questions to which I would request your prompt
she's under the
replies
weather.
for the senator. Senator Cornyn.
Director Gabbard, I applaud President Trump's efforts to try to bring an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. I want to read a statement out of the annual threat assessment and just confirm that you agree with this. It says Russia views its ongoing war with Ukraine as a proxy conflict with the West, and its objective to restore Russian strength and security in its near abroad against perceived U.S. and Western encroachment has increased the risks of unintended escalation between Russia and NATO. Do you agree with that statement? And that is in the annual threat assessment, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to refer to an AP story, Associated Press, dated March 21st, 2025. The title of the article is "Western Officials Say Russia is Behind a Campaign of Sabotage Across Europe." This AP map shows it.
Now, I want everybody to take note of this. Sorry about that. Take note of this. There was actually a fire in Disneyland, and folks need to ask themselves, is that sabotage too? Russia is known to do these things, and this is, again, their weaponry and their military might is not that great, but they compensate that largely through spying, espionage, and sabotage. That's where they rank high. That's where they excel. And it's been going on in Europe for since the Ukraine war started. Incidents in different countries where there's fires, where there's outages of power, where there's, communications disruptions, different things like that. And in Disney, just a week ago, there was a fire. And guess what area in the park the fire was in? The area that is called France. Now think about that, because France has been highly, you could say, charged and regarding the Ukraine and the security of the EU. They've been stepping up their support, not only France, but they've been taking one of the lead. They're one of the lead countries because of their size, population, and economy, right? So they're a big part of the GDP in the EU. Also Germany, right? They're not the only ones, though. But, just ask yourself, follow that story, find out, is that sabotage? Remember, we discussed on my channel, too, there was a ship that was in Baltimore, that a shipping ship, by the way, that knocked down the Key, I believe it's the Key Bridge in Baltimore. That ship, we watched it, went right under the bridge, stopped, turned, and started again to proceed backwards directly into the pylon that holds the bridge up and knocked it down. To this day, we still have not gotten an update on that. Just keep that in mind when we listen to this.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that being made part of the record.
Without objection.
The document that AP compiled, and I presume this is through open sources, documented 59 incidents, including cyber attacks, spreading propaganda, plotting killings, or committing acts of vandalism, arson, sabotage, or espionage. Is that consistent with your understanding and impression of what Russia's currently engaged in Europe?
Senator, I haven't seen that specific article, but I can confirm that we assess Russia's attempts to conduct such sabotage activities in Europe.
Thank you.
What about the
One
US?
of the things that I'm most concerned about following some of the discussions between Russia and Ukraine and the United States and our other allies, obviously, as I said, peace between Ukraine and Russia is the desirable end state. I think you'd have to be crazy to say otherwise. But I also want to talk a little bit about the unexpected or maybe unintended consequences of European insecurity. I know the incoming Chancellor of Germany has talked about the possibility that Germany might share its nuclear weapons with Ukraine and suggested that the UK would be part of that. I know that Poland has talked about acquiring nuclear weapons, and perhaps other European countries to make up for what they view as a receding of the American umbrella of protection. General Krause, what would be the result of a proliferation of nuclear weapon armed?
It was an umbrella of protection that gave the U.S. the lion's share of trade. That's why the U.S. GDP is so high, because they got more in return for it. Just keep that in mind.
Countries in Europe, if in fact that would occur as a result of our the perception of European insecurity.
Senator, thank you for the question. One of the things that the intelligence community works very hard on is to understand who has nuclear weapons throughout the planet. And as discussed in the opening statements, both by the chair and by Director Gabbard, the proliferation and the increase in the types and the lethality of nuclear weapons is one of the things that we have to track, and we as a nation are going to have to face. It has changed dramatically in the last 5 years and will continue to change over the next 5 years. The addition of additional countries which have their own deterrence policies and will act in a nuclear dialogue, or the presence of those weapons, the security of those weapons, the movement and the threat of use of those weapons complicates the environment by which all of us will operate, and will complicate all of the decisions by which all future conflict and the political decisions that we support are the decision makers.
It makes the world a more dangerous place, does it not?
In other words, it was much simpler to give the U.S. the lion's share of the trade, as long as they provided the security that came along with it, that goes along with that trade, right? And these dudes have bumbled it all, along with this lady from, they even call Tulsi Gabbard a Russian spy from the top, Kash Patel, spy from the top. I mean, all of these people. So, it doesn't make any sense why the U.S. would pull back at such a strategic moment in history, where China is becoming more emboldened, but increasing its military capability, and where the global environment is changing. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but you find a Trump administration that has set out to do that. Now, how do you pull back and tell Europe to step up, but then everyone tells you, wait a second, that doesn't necessarily equal safety for the U.S.? No, it doesn't actually. It doesn't. That's the stupidity of it all. It was safer when the U.S. was having the umbrella. It allowed the U.S. to have more in trade, and it also allowed the U.S., one country, to serve as that mechanism. Now they're all going to step up. So that means you're going to have more investment in weapons, more militarization of Europe, even on the nuclear level. And what can you say? There's nothing the United States can say about it, because it is the United States president that told them they have to beef up their own security. So what does that mean? What does that mean? The U.S. president literally told Europe to become more militarized for their own safety. And that's exactly what the message is that they got. So, yeah, folks, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to stop it right here. I'm sure there's more to this. You should check out who is in this meeting. I mean, actually, is there more going on here? I think these people get chewed out, actually, the whole time. Let's watch some more. Let's see some more. Is there more here?
Say thank you for your service. Let me ask a couple of questions on this. Director Gabbard, let me start with you on this. Iran has been listed as one of the top sponsors of terrorism for a very long time. They're the primary armors of Hezbollah, of Hamas, of the Houthis. They're arming the Russians to be able to kill Ukrainians. They continue to be able to destabilize the region. And just in the recent days, when many nations in the Gulf region have talked about how to provide greater stability, Iranian leadership stepped out and made very clear statements. They want a one-state solution for Israel, and it's to drive out all Jews. So this continues to be an issue, not just for the region, but for Americans in particular. So my question is on this is the sanctions and the effect of sanctions, what we know about the Iranian response. Under the Biden administration, those sanctions will turn down, where, quite frankly, Iran has been able to sell $90 billion in oil on the global market to be able to rearm itself and all the others around the region. Now sanctions are now going back on to Iran again. What do we know about the effect of those sanctions?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. These sanctions have just begun to be reinstated, so the full effects have not yet borne fruit. But the message that the president has sent with his maximum pressure campaign is certainly heard. As the chairman mentioned in his opening remarks, President Trump recently sent a letter to the leader of Iran expressing his interest in direct talks in order to try to de-escalate and to prevent war, prevent Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon, but also stated that there would be military consequences if there was no direct negotiations. So President Trump is continuing to carry out his vision and mission of peace through strength, acting in the best interests of the American people. We will see what choices are made from here.
Okay, thank you. Director Patel, during the last administration and the very open border policy that they had, we had some years, including 2022 and 2023, where there were 70,000 individuals that were released into the country that were identified as special interest aliens. This is something this committee and the Homeland Security Committee tried over and over again to get details on. The Biden administration was unwilling to be able to share any of the details on the special interest aliens, led to a great amount of frustration. The comment came often back to us is that FBI is going to track all these individuals and to be able to identify them, even though it was 70,000 a year that were coming into the country. You just walked into this position and trying to get your feet on the ground in so many different issues that are outstanding on that. I raised to you the issue of individuals that are currently.
He sounds like he's just trying to, Yeah, sounds ridiculous here. Let's see. They're just trying to, ask softball questions.
Of Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. In the short time that I've been in the seat, I've seen a few examples of that directly. Most recently through the FISA court, calling in an amici to come in and weigh in on a dispute regarding provisions that would further protect Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. I'll be visiting our friends at the NSA next week and doing a quote-unquote ride-along to observe directly how those reforms that Congress passed are being implemented to protect Americans' civil liberties, and look forward to reporting back after I've had that opportunity.
Thank you. Director Patel.
Thank you, Senator. With my background in FISA and 702, I just want to clearly delineate between FISA Title 1.3 and 702 collection. We need to both ardently defend its use, but also...
All right, yeah, so I'm going to pull out of here, folks. I appreciate everybody's time. Again, let me just double check and make sure I haven't overlooked a few things. Oh, right. Just to follow up on that before we go, here is some of the latest news with the EU, right? Just so folks have it. Let me see here. Is this it right here? Can y'all see this? Let me see. Boom. Hopefully y'all can see this right now. Oh, really? That didn't go to... Oh, wait a second. I think I know why. Is it this one? This one, right? And then we pull this one back up. Here are the attack plans. Right. Oh, that's not showing up. Let me see. I'll go to this again. Here are the attack plans. Let me do this. Let me see. There we go. This is reporting out of the EU right now from Politico, right? EU slams the door on U.S. and colossal defense plan block amid to build up military industrial complex to deter Russia and brace for U.S. shift away from Europe. See, the EU is moving forward very rapidly. Brussels, United States arm makers are being frozen out of the European Union massive new defense spreading plan, which aims to splash the cash for EU and allied countries according to defense spending plans. So that means that, yeah, they are going to beef up their weapons making, but it won't be through buying stuff from the U.S. they're going to stop that now. And one of the reasons has something to do with the orders for the aircraft fighter planes. They don't want them anymore, so they're canceling those, and the buildup won't include weapons from the United States. It's going to include their boosting up their own capabilities, which the EU already has, by the way. They just account for their military budget. Yes. And then we're going to end off. Let's end off on Greenland. Greenland, oh my goodness. Greenland is tired of leaders. Look, Greenland leader says U.S. officials visit highly aggressive. They're calling it aggressive. Trump says it's friendliness, not provocation. And look at this. They're like, hell no, this ain't provocation. This is not friendliness. Look at this. They're like, F Trump. This is what they're talking about all day long over here. It is F Trump. They are tired of the U.S. harassing them. They see this the same way a woman sees sexual harassment. You know, basically, they see it as an offense. They have already had an election about this. They had a spot election just to ask, do you want to be part of the U.S. or do you want to continue on your plan with Denmark? Because Denmark and Greenland, they have been working on a plan to gradually move into independence for Greenland. But it has security things and other matters, not just weapons, but food, sustainability, things like that. So they've already been on a course for independence. And then here comes Donald Trump saying he want to buy it. Look, they don't want to be bought. They don't want to be owned. They had an election just about Trump, and they said no. The election was unanimous. They're saying no. Please stop coming here. We don't like you. We hate you. We do not like you. You do not respect us. We're tired of you. We are a sovereign people. We are free people, and we want to continue to be that way, to move towards our own sovereignty. We don't want to be bought by the U.S. So on that note, folks, I'm going to end it out. We had a demonstration at the American Embassy, actually, in Denmark, by the way. We had a here, let me pull this up. This is it right here. Sorry, y'all didn't see that. We had a demonstration in front of the U.S. Embassy where we had a lot of Greenlanders. We had Danes. We had, who else? Some Canadians, different people, Americans, right? And where people just spoke. We had a few politicians there as well. And, actually we got a interesting, well, I shouldn't say it. I won't say it, but something very interesting we could say privately that you all would laugh about. But in any case, the demonstration went well. I was happy to be a part of the demonstration. I had some words to say, and myself, there's some people that recorded it, but it wasn't really for the purpose of showing, obviously, because Trump is out there, right, threatening people over freedom of speech, right, people that show dissent. And as you know, right now, it's becoming increasingly more difficult for people to get into the U.S. Just because they exercise freedom of speech and they maybe show some dissent towards Trump. So, for those reasons. But in any case, it was a good event. We had a chance to talk and speak, hear different speakers, see each other eye to eye, have some heart-to-heart words with each other so that Greenlanders and Danes know that Americans don't like this shit. Americans, we ain't with this shit Trump is on. We're just as befuddled. We're befuddled, we're scared, we're shocked, and we have everything to fear from this same administration as you do. So we're all going through it together. And I just wanted to mention that to everybody. Folks, I'm out of here. Thanks for coming through. We'll be back.